Meg 2, The Trench, is directed by Ben Wheatley and stars Jason Statham, Wu Jing, and among others. And this is the sequel to 2018's The Meg, which was also based on a series of novels. And in this story, it deals with, similar to the first one, where you have a team of scientists that are basically having to survive from this megalodon, and this time it involves with more than one, along with some other creatures, as you see from as the movie goes along, and it also has to deal with some corporate espionage kind of stuff that as it goes, where it goes into some Mission Impossible kind of territory. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Ben Wheatley, who I haven't really heard much about. I hear he's a really talented director in the United Kingdom. I've heard that he's made some fun movies, especially Free Fire and stuff like that. But I haven't seen any of his films, so this is my first time watching one of his movies. And going into it, I kind of just had some just kind of like very low expectations because from the first film from 2018, I found it to be kind of like, it was a decent watch. It knew what it was doing as far as it trying to be that kind of like fun level, but I just wish it could have reached more of its potential with what it was trying to do. And I think what it really liked was the fact that it was trying to be kind of more on that fun, kind of campy type of shark movie that you would see basically like a big budget version of like those countless sci-fi films that involve with sharks. And I think what really kind of hit it back a lot was the fact that they didn't really show much of the shark action and stuff. And on top of that, with it being PG-13 didn't help either. But going to this one, I didn't really expect much with this because this was one of those movies that I really didn't really know it was coming out because I only got the trailer of it probably like a month ago, and it was really low on my radar because it was just something that's like, okay, I'm going to see it only because I saw the first one. And after upon seeing the film, I can say that, well, as much as I, thought the first one was a decent watch, I thought this was a really big, massive drop from the first one. I felt like the things that they could have really improved on from the first film could have been a whole lot better in this time. But where it really lacks is the fact that they try to basically do more of that, but not enough, if that makes sense. Where they're trying to give you like more creatures and stuff, but then it's also intertwined with some other things that really make the film very almost boring at times for a short movie. And so to get my pros out of the way, I will say that the cast in this make it work. I think Jason Statham, he still carries it like he did in the first film, where he's charismatic as usual. He does have some fun one-liners here and there, and I think that his chemistry with not only the little girl that's played by the same actress comes back is still genuine, but also with his camaraderie that's involved with Wu Jing's character in this time was a lot of fun at times with them having a banter of each other and stuff like that. And, you get to see some more underwater action that involves with Statham and stuff, where he gets to having to do a lot of diving and things like that, Statham is known for. And then you also get to see Statham and Wu Jing do some fight scenes with some bad guys and stuff like that, which is fun. But I'll get into my kind of have a pro-con with that because that falls into some later cons that I have to get into. But I thought the cast in this still made it work, and the way that it's also, goes into more of the territory with the Megalodon doing what it does best, where you get to see more of it underwater and stuff, and then also you get to see more than one, you get to see three of them this time, and the moments that involve where it's actually taking place, where it's trying to, actually try to kill people and stuff, they do get to show a little bit more in this, in like certain parts where you get to see a little bit more blood, but not by a whole lot. So, especially when you get to see the climax and stuff, so there are some really good fun moments with the Meg, and some of the other creatures that they get involved with this. And there's even an opening scene in this that I was actually really surprised that caught me off guard because, when it was shown the trailers, they really made it work not only in 3D, because I saw the film in 3D and it was a lot of fun for the most part, to an extent in that regard, with the way it's kind of, you can tell that things fly the screen and stuff like that. And it's the kind of 3D that you would expect from this kind of movie. And so that works. And then on top of that, there are some fun one-liners and action sequences when you get to the climax later on that really make the film, like what you're kind of looking for, kind of like the first film, where it's like they kind of learn from their mistakes in certain aspects where we couldn't really get to see much of just destruction happen and stuff with the beach in the first film. So they try to do it more in this one, but that does now kind of get into more of my cons, and I will have to say that while the movie does have its fun moments, it is unfortunately let down by a pretty a pretty dumb written script that really takes a lot of stuff that I thought that really makes it seem like the film tries to be a lot more campier than what it is. and it comes across as very kind of trying too hard. And to get my cons, I have to say that the movie does suffer from a lot of stuff that is the problem I had with certain other films that do that, where you basically try to do so many plots and stuff at once, and you're taking away the focus of what you're trying to watch of it. Because this movie basically has the same issues I had with Jurassic World Dominion, where it becomes less of a monster flick and being more of a Mission Impossible espionage type of film. That about half of the film, about almost in the middle of the film, it takes a chunk of it out of it to where you're really not focused much on the shark, as you are getting into some stuff where it becomes more like a, bad guys, mercenaries and stuff, having to basically take control of things and stay them in company, having to survive. And it just becomes a very generic action film for the most part. And I think that is a really big misstep from the first film. Because honestly, I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail or anything, but if you really took out these bad guys subplot in it, you really wouldn't have missed nothing. Because I could make a whole, I guarantee you there's probably an edit in this film where if it just focused more on them surviving the sharks and stuff, the whole plots involving with the rival mercenaries and stuff could have really been cut out completely, and you didn't need to have that as the focus. And so that was really, and really, it really goes nowhere as well with it. And so that was one of my biggest issues. On top of that, there are some really kind of cringe lines and cheap lines that they throw in here and there that it is trying to be on that kind of campy type level, but the way it comes across at points, it just really feels like it's, it's really just kind of, really hard to hear at times, and it's very cheap dialogue that's trying to be funny at times, but it's not. And then other times it is, if that makes sense. So the one-liners they throw in here and there are can be fun, but at the same time they get overbearing after a while, to where I was just like, man, I'm sitting here just kind of bored watching the theater, because I'm trying to be enthralled with a lot of stuff that's happening later in the film, but there's also some problems with the pacing when it gets into the middle half of the film, where there's a whole sequence that reminds me of something either in one of a RPG game or something, where they're going underwater and stuff, and they're wearing these diving suits, and this whole section really takes up a lot of time, to where I wasn't really engaged with it. Not to mention, unlike the first film, which I think had a really great cinematography and was really breathtaking to look and on the way it was shot and everything, this one really feels like the cinematography in this looked a lot more cheaper looking. And keep in mind, this is a pretty high budgeted movie with about, I think it was cost around maybe $130 million or so, but the way that the cinematography and the way it looks at times, it really looks like a direct-to-video film, and that's really saying a lot for a big studio making a film like this. And so that really threw me off, and it's just, it doesn't help that there's a lot of dumb choices that the characters make throughout some of the stuff later in the film, and because when the script calls for it. And then on top of that, there's some inconsistencies of stuff they set up that are supposed to be, smart, the way it tries to fend off the Megalodon and stuff, but it's so obvious where it's going, you can tell when certain things happen. And it's just like, duh, I could tell that's not going to work. And so there's more I can go into detail on this, and keep in mind, I did not hate this film, but this is going to be one of those films for me that's going to be so forgettable, much like with 65, which, funny enough, when I was watching the opening of this movie, it reminded me of that movie too, and I just really feel like there could have been a lot more to it, and there's really so much more that you can also put with the R rating with this as well, because with it also being PG-13, you take away a lot of what you could have saw with a lot of the sharks eating people and stuff. And while they don't shy away on certain aspects, they really do feel like, there's, when the shark is eating them, they're either off screen, or it's, sequences where it's in the mouth and things like that, and it's just not enough to really showcase what the R rating could have done with it. Even though it is, even though you're trying to go for that fun approach with it. And so there's more I can go into, but that's really the gist of this, and I think this is going to be one of those movies that, I don't know if it'll make my dishonorable mention or not, but it's definitely going to be one of the most forgettable movies of the year for me. And with that, I'm going to go with a very high, extremely high disaster rate on the Film Freaks meter. And so, for those of you who have also seen Meg 2: The Trench, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.